Everyone. We'll give it another minute for a few more people to jump in. Happy that you're here. Welcome. We'll start in about a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Dan Misla. I'm the Executive Director of Catholic Climate Covenant. And our webinar today is to celebrate a remarkable event, which was the release of Laudato Si, A Care for Our Common Home by Pope Francis, who I know we all miss dearly. So we are happy to welcome you to listen and learn and be inspired by all of the things that have happened in the United States in implementing Laudato Si through the Laudato Si Action platform and other elsewhere. So today's celebration hopefully will also motivate you to continue the work, the very important work of caring for our common home. I'm also delighted to welcome our dear colleague and friend, Christina Liano, who's going to open us with prayer, but let me give her a moment to welcome as well.
Thanks so much, Dan. And it is such a joy to be here to celebrate this milestone moment with you and the wider Catholic family here in the United States. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers to help us to see how the Holy Spirit has inspired so much amazing action over the last 10 years and to see how we can build on this momentum for years to come.
Thank you, Christina. So just a little bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded, so you will have access to this recording in a day or two. If you have questions, please submit those in the Q&A box, not in the chat. I think that might be disabled, in fact. So if you have questions for any of the panelists as we go, write those into the Q&A box. We will answer those at the end. We may be able to live answer some of those if it's easy to do. If you're watching this on the YouTube live stream, unfortunately, you will not be able to submit questions. So we apologize for that. The chat is available. I'm reading my notes here. The chat is available for those attending in the Zoom function here. But please, if you're chatting, keep that civil, be respectful, and we would appreciate that greatly. So I'm going to turn it back over to Christina for an opening prayer.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. So why don't we take a moment to remember that we're in the presence of our loving Creator as we lift our hearts and our minds to prayer. So a prayer for the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si. Laudato Si to you, loving Creator God. From you all good things flow and bloom. Praise be also for the prophetic life of your servant Pope Francis, who steadfastly urged us to hear the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. Today, our minds and hearts are open to these cries. We hear the wrenching cry of the poor and vulnerable. We hear the pleading cry of climate migrants and refugees. We hear, O God, we hear. We hear the cries of your creation groaning in travail. We hear the roaring cry of forests disappearing. We hear the haunting cries of our fellow creatures. We hear, O God, we hear. Yet it is not enough to only hear these cries. Help us, God, to confront the consequences of our neglect and abuse of creation, to radically change our ways and live in peace with each other and creation. Fill us with your strength to be protectors and redeemers of the vulnerable and of all creation. Give us your grace so we may become fruitful seeds of peace and hope that will sprout and welcome your kingdom on earth. We pray through Christ our Lord, under the loving gaze of the Blessed Mother and your faithful servant, Pope Francis. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Christina. Beautiful prayer. When we were planning this webinar, it was actually supposed to happen last week, and Cardinal Czerny, from the Prefect for the Dicastery for the promotion of integral human development, was going to join us live. Between the planning and today, a lot of things have happened in Rome, as we're well aware. So he was unable to join us in person, but he did send a video message for us. So let's listen to Cardinal Czerny, one of the real champions of our work.
Dear brothers and sisters, 10 years ago, Pope Francis prophetically called on humanity to care for our common home through responses that integrate ecology, social justice, and spirituality. In this Jubilee year of Hope 2025, and on the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si, let us give thanks to God, and indeed to one another, for paying attention to both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Important contributions already made include educating and raising awareness, providing religious inspiration and motivation, popularizing scientific consensus, reaching political commitments to bring needed changes about, and forming movements with wide participation. Christians around the world are engaged in ecological efforts to care for our vulnerable siblings and our degraded common home. Examples include numerous educational programs in schools and universities, a rich body of literature ranging from practical guides to philosophical and theological reflections, reforestation projects and innovative farms on church-owned land, urban renewal initiatives led by dioceses, ecology-sensitive renovations of buildings, making supply chains more responsible, countless advocacy initiatives, and prayer gatherings and liturgies dedicated to the care of creation. Achievements of the co-sponsors for today's webinar deserve congratulations for their impressive record in promoting ecological conversion during these past 10 years. Just to name a few of their accomplishments, I begin with the Catholic Climate Covenant has worked diligently to encourage dioceses and parishes to join the Laudato Si action platform. The Catholic Energies Initiative provides solar development services for Catholic facilities through some 35 projects in 14 states and in Puerto Rico. Youth and young adult mobilization programs have been promoted. An interdiocesan creation care network links 39 of the 176 Roman Catholic dioceses in the United States, and 400 parish creation care teams have been formed. There is a large and active presence in social media. Solid relationships have been formed with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, particularly for advocating public policies. The Laudato Si Action Platform offers Catholic institutions and organizations numerous resources, good practices, and pathways to implement the principles of integral ecology. Recently updated its website and a new certification program for institutions. And the platform enjoys nearly 2,300 registered memberships in the United States out of 10,400 worldwide. The Laudato Si movement in North America. Launched 10 years ago, the Laudato Si is active in 140 countries with 20,000 certified animators worldwide. In North America, the movement has 7 state and city-based chapters and 100 Laudato Si circles. It supports the facilitation of ecological conversion, the season of creation, and the Laudato Si week. And it does advocacy and promotes divestment. Nevertheless, with the same regret expressed by Pope Francis, we must all lament the damage which continues to be inflicted on the earth. Although more than 90 nations have now signed the Paris Accords, setting targets to reach net zero emissions by mid-century, we are now heading dangerously close to the 1.5 to 2 degrees ceiling targeted by the Accords. So what should we do? Pope Francis shows the way. He says, we need a conversation which includes everyone, since the environmental challenge we are undergoing and its human roots concern and affect us all. We require a new and universal solidarity. All of us can cooperate as instruments of God for the care of creation, each according to his or her own culture, experience, involvements, and talents. And Pope Leo said this to the diplomatic corps in mid-May. Truth enables us to confront all the more resolutely the challenges of protection of our beloved planet Earth. These are challenges that require commitment and cooperation on the part of all, since no one can think of facing them alone. And so let me invite all of you participating in this anniversary webinar to read and reread Laudato Si and Laudate Deum. And please ask yourselves, first, are there any new signs of the times which require attention? Are there any that were relevant in 2015 but now require less attention? Are there any proposals for action which still remain to be taken up, or new ones which should be made? Which of the challenges that Laudato Si and Laudate Deum propose to the human family should be acted upon more integrally and with greater collaboration? The fruits of your reflection will surely be very helpful for the ministry of your organizations in the United States and for Pope Leo in carrying forward the teaching and leadership of Pope Francis in caring for our common home. Let us end with a prayer that comes from Laudato Si. The poor and the earth are crying out, O Lord, seize us with your power and light. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future, for the coming of your kingdom of justice, peace, love, and beauty. Amen. Thank you, and God bless you.
So wonderful message from Cardinal Czerny. I'm also encouraged and a little intimidated by the questions that he asked towards the end of his presentation. You know, we have lots to do. This is not going away anytime soon. So let's celebrate what we've done, and we're going to share some of those stories in a minute. But let's also think about what more we can do as Catholics, as individuals, as communities, and to care for our common home, God's creation. So let me introduce the presenters. So we have the 7 sectors represented that are in the Laudato Si Action platform. Each of them will have about 7 minutes to present, to share what they've been doing in each of these sectors. And let's celebrate their work because it's really remarkable. So we're going to go in this order. The economic sector is represented by Felipe Witchger, who's the co-founder of the Francesco Collaborative, followed by Josh Van Cleef, the director of the Office of Peace and Justice in the Diocese of Lexington. He will be the diocesan representative. For the parishes, for a parish representative, we were blessed to have Janet Broderick. She's from St. John Newman's Care for Our Common Home Ministry in Reston, Virginia. From education, we have Michael Downs, the Director of Justice and Kinship, and the Creation Care team at Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California. From the religious order sector, we have our dear friend, Sister Bridget Beers, who is the Associate Director for Transformative Justice at the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Sister Bridget serves on the Religious Orders and Congregation Work Group of the Laudato Si Action Platform, and she's our new chair of our board. I'm happy to announce that as well, of Catholic Climate Covenant's board. In the health sector, we have another dear friend, Indus Pugnardi. She's the Senior Director of Community Health and Elder Care at Catholic Health Association USA, where she leads CHA's response to the Laudato Si Action Platform and serves as the co-chair of the Health and Healing Work Group of the platform. And finally, Catholic organizations, we have Victor James, co-manager of Faith in Action Ministry at the Franciscan Renewal Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, Felipe, you want to get us started?
So thank you so much, Dan. It's a delight to be here with everybody. I thought I would just share a few highlights for me, drawn by the sense of deep purpose that unites us in this desire to live more faithfully into the invitation of Laudato Si, and of course the challenges that we're faced with. And I just want to encourage you with all the good work each of you is doing and hopefully share some of the pieces that have been inspiring to me. So I got into this work invited by Pope Francis's invitation to young people with the Economy of Francesco. Here we were gathered in Assisi in 2022. And I'm going to try not to be in abstract terms, but really lens of action and transformation. So one of the main things we've been up to these past few years is this Livable Future Investing Workshop. We've trained more than 200 Catholics, investors, social movement leaders, asking the question, what does bold embodiment of Catholic social teaching and investing really look like? And what does it mean to take human dignity, solidarity seriously in our investment decision-making? And in the workshop, we invite our participants to kind of situate themselves in the real lament of our times, the crisis, the economic injustice, the spiritual desolation, but also what are my gifts? What is my most important work? And we've seen this just incredible actualization of people's leadership, leveling up in their own institutions, in their own communities, and trying to weave together across many different contexts how we can take the urgent message of Laudato Si and the heart of ecological economics and put that clearly into what we call faith-first investing, which is a call to conversion to kind of say no to the conventional investing logics that so often dominate our economic thinking, and to recognize the intellectual traditions and roots where that comes from, but also the opportunities. One of those people we've gotten to meet is Sister Sue Ernster, who's now the president of the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. And their congregation has just done an extraordinary job. And so she's one of many that has gone through our workshop and then taken action. So alongside Tom Marthaler and Tyler Zabrowski, their CFO, they've invested over $8 million into the different funds listed here. And they have now, in their process, take into account the 7 principles of CST, their own provocative movements, unveiling white privilege, standing with suffering earth communities, joyful gospel living, and then the Laudato Si principles. So you can see these different examples of funds they've gotten to know through our community and through our work. And we've actually filmed, little finance first films to kind of give examples of this. So happy to share a link to that if that's helpful as well. Here's a sense of who we've drawn into relationship with through the economic sector, through Francesco Collaborative and many partners. So everybody from, women religious to family offices to solidarity economy partners to pension funds and nonprofits. And really we ask, what does right relationship look like in investing? We also, many of us if we're not in institutional context, stewarding assets, we're often in our own individual context. And we ask the question, what is enough? We try to work toward a positive vision of moving beyond negative screening and shareholder advocacy and really dreaming about what does this alternative economy look like and what are the concrete manifestations, particular projects. We took a group to the Industrial Commons in Morganton, North Carolina. There's a great ecosystem in Cincinnati, Co-op Cincy. But then also, how does it level up? And I'll talk about some employee ownership examples as well. we think in Laudato Si, it maps a shift from like capital supremacy, a tendency to like center systems and structures that prioritize, the returns and profit, to kind of a faith first logic. And so this is kind of a spectrum we've developed in our community, where we're seeing how many of our investments, externalize risk. There's not a participatory design for communities. It's extracting more value than you take. And so to embody Laudato Si, what does non-maximization look like? What does relationality and repair look like? What is participation? And we also talk about moving from structures of sin to right relationship. And so this can be applied to our retirement accounts, university endowments, our foundation portfolios, even our nonprofits. How do we recognize that it's so much more than kind of the charity or the philanthropy or the giving, but it's the 95%, the core of our asset stewardship is so vital. And how do we activate that for mission and embodiment of Laudato Si? And that's a core question we ask. And there's so many good examples. One of the ones we lift up is this incredible Comparte network throughout Latin America, where there's more than 50,000 families across 30 social centers, often connected to Jesuit missions. And they have one in Chiapas, Mexico, I got to visit a couple of years ago, that has Capeltique coffee. And through some incredible work at the Nation Solidarity Network, you can actually buy that coffee here. So all of my coffee now comes from them, and it's one tangible example of solidarity, but it gives me so much hope, because these 600 indigenous families that produce the coffee have a whole different reality of food sovereignty, and the immigration pressures are completely different because of the abundance they've been able to embrace through this connection to coffee shops on their campuses. And if we can engage our communities to buy coffee from them, it just, to me, links up so much of what we're trying to do. And they're raising investment capital as well. So many different parts of this. Another key aspect of our work has been this, together in partnership with the Center for Action and Contemplation, we've launched a Franciscan personal finance course. And in the right here, there's a gentleman, Greg Little, and his family, the Corner House in Durham, North Carolina. They have this common good fund that started 3 or 4 years ago, where they just pool a couple $100s a month from 10 or 20 families, many from our parish, and they've given a loan to a local farmer to buy a refrigerator to, take his veggies to market, but help, grow his CSA. And realizing we can all rewrite the economic relationships in our community with the relationships we already have, but just using our capital for that way. And so this Franciscan personal finance course is something I want to invite you to think about. We're just expanding to several more cohorts this summer and fall, and we'd love to invite you to think about that. If you do know institutional investors, one of the main things we've gotten tens of millions to flow into is employee ownership. Apis and Heritage was on their first fund in 2021. And we were able to help them raise $10 million from 5 impact investors that led to now 400 workers that are now worker owners, on the path to about $100,000 in wealth and ownership in their company they wouldn't have had otherwise. There's this Latino workers in El Paso here at this landscaping utility firm, and there's Baltimore. It's just an incredible model. And I think we're seeing more and more possibilities for employee ownership, so converting existing businesses. So if you're interested, we are looking for more. They are continuing to find new funds. So the 3 invitations I'm going to leave you with: we have our annual summit. We'll be in Washington, D.C. this year, November 11th through 13th. We have this personal finance course. How do we bring these values together? And there's so many tensions, but how do we journey together? And then there's this Taste of Livable Future investing workshop. So some of the frameworks I previewed here, we have one on June 20th. It's free. Paz, if you don't mind putting these links in the chat, would love to invite all these folks here. And then finally, my work at Francesco Collaborative focuses in particular on institutional investors. So if you do have institutional investors, we always love the introduction to them. And with that, I'll pass it back over to you, Dan.
Amazing work, Felipe. You should be congratulated on this. I know you've been at this for years, and it's very impressive. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Josh Van Cleef, who represents the diocesan work that's been done through the platform. Josh?
Yes. Great. See, action platform. And we have asked that all of our parishes, all 59 of our parishes and their schools, enroll as well. So on January 1st, 2025, we published our diocesan Laudato Si action plan. That plan includes Laudato Si action plans for all of our 59 parishes and their schools, as well as our diocesan-wide commitments. Our approach to making this plan was simple. We wanted to develop a plan in such a way that would mobilize all our communities, all of our faith communities, every single parish around Laudato Si. We wanted to develop a plan in such a way that it would reflect our call to be a synodal church, that is, to listen and accompany, to practice subsidiarity and solidarity. We wanted to develop a plan that would empower new leadership and creativity, that would mobilize from the bottom up, but we also knew that we had to lead from the top. So we wanted to create a process that would be simple and help us concretize our commitments and coordinate our efforts across the diocese. So this is what we did. Let's see. In 2024, May 19th at Pentecost, each parish received a letter from Bishop John Stowe introducing the Laudato Si action planning process. We tailored this process specifically for our diocese. Next, each pastor was asked to enroll their parish into the Laudato Si action platform and to assemble a team, a Laudato Si action team. These teams would be the pastor and at least 2 parishioners, but many of them were much larger. Then the teams were asked to complete a parish assessment based on the 7 goals of Laudato Si, how they're already practicing those goals, and how they could further practice them. And we also asked each parish to host at least 1 listening session, again, reflecting on the 7 goals of Laudato Si. Finally, with the parish assessment and listening session in hand, teams made plans, made Laudato Si action plans and submitted them by October 4th to the diocese. Plans included parish commitments for the 7 goals of Laudato Si, and they also and each parish appointed a Laudato Si coordinator to oversee the implementation of the plan, to monitor progress, and each year to update and evaluate their plan. To help our parishes through this process, the diocese provided 7 webinars for our teams. We had a webinar on introducing the Laudato Si action platform, on how to conduct a listening session, on integrating Laudato Si into preaching and liturgical celebrations, on greening our parish facilities, developing parish guidelines and policies, on the global reality of the climate crisis, and finally on making a Laudato Si action plan. Each plan that the parishes created were really made up of 2 main elements: a Laudato Si statement and then SMART commitments, specific, measurable, achievable, related to the goals of Laudato Si, and time-bound commitments that all of our parishes made. Those were submitted by the Feast of St. Francis to the diocese. On January 1, 2025, we published those plans, and this included the parish plans and diocesan-wide commitments such as chancery policies and net zero initiative and commitments around our investments. We began monthly parish Laudato Si coordinator meetings. This is a time for our parish leaders to discuss the implementation of their plans, share about progress, challenges, share wisdom, resources, and for us to plan together. In February, we had our first new solar project. Bishop John Stowe had solar panels put on his house. Then we received a grant from Catholic Extension that allowed 15 parishes to receive small grants to put in pollinator gardens, water bottle refillers, new LED lights, and a whole host of initiatives. And these were targeted to our mountain and rural parishes. And then through that grant process as well, probably 4 of our parishes are now kind of at the final stage of looking at solar and preparing for solar projects. And then as we look ahead, all of our parishes are planning to update and evaluate their plans during the season of creation, and to share that with their wider parish, to celebrate the commitments made and also look ahead at 2026 and how they want to take on new commitments. The second part of our plan, as I mentioned, diocesan-wide commitments. One example of this was is our net zero pledge. April last year, Bishop John Stowe announced that our diocese was committing to net zero by 2030 for the Scope 2 emissions. Scope 2 has to do with our purchased electricity, but we're taking on much more than that. That's just a start. To do this, we assembled Bishop John assembled a host of experts to lead us on the path to net zero, and we plan to have our net zero plan laid out and published by the season of creation 2025. Finally, I can say that now we went from having one parish team before this process, one Care for Creation team, to having Care for Creation teams in all of our parishes. All of our parishes have plans, and now we look ahead and say, with great hope, and say, what does this look like as we make our parish Laudato Si teams an essential part of the life of the parish? All of our teams have been working so hard, and many new initiatives and creativity and new leaders have emerged. So as we look to the future, we know that it's going to take courage, prophetic hope, and real commitments. So we're so happy to be alongside you and to work with the Catholic Climate Covenant and Laudato Si movement along the way. Thank you so much.
Well, Bishop Stowe certainly has set the bar high for the rest of us, and Josh, you should be congratulated for the amazing work that you're doing in Lexington. And I know everybody on this call is watching closely at how this unfolds. There have been some questions about sharing some of this information, so we'll be sure to get that out to folks after the webinar. So let's turn to Janet Broderick from the parish sector. Janet, we're glad you're here. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm very glad to be here as part of this program, and I'd like to particularly share our perspective about joining the Laudato Si Action Platform at the parish level. So I'm from St. John Neumann in Reston, Virginia. We're a suburb of DC, and we're staffed by the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. And one of their charisms is gentleness, and that really fits in well with the whole tone of the LSAP. So I have a few thoughts to share on the big picture, and then a few thoughts on how we went about the enrollment process, particularly for anybody else that is, at a parish level trying to take this next step. So I'm hoping what I say helps to encourage you to commit. The title of the webinar is A Time to Celebrate and a Time to Commit. So I'm hoping these comments help there. So first, I'd like to acknowledge that the Laudato Si movement and the Catholic Climate Covenant are both spirit-led movements. And that really attracted us to the spiritual aspect of showing up and then letting the Holy Spirit do the work. So we've come to view the LSAP as a train, with you two movement leaders as the engineers. And so we're thankful to hop on the train and bring our gifts of enthusiasm to the movement. So our Care for a Common Home ministry was formed in 2016 after we read Laudato Si, and we'd had a proven track record by the time the LSAP was developed. So when we talked to our pastor about the plan, he was very inclined to give us his blessings and in the enrollment process and send us on our way. And I know that's not the case for all parishes, but it was for us. And he had some good advice for us. He said, make sure we include the staff and the heads of ministries when we develop the plan. So while our core group of 4 volunteers did most of the work, it was good advice to make sure that others were in the loop. And it also helped us promote our ministry as well. So we felt like now we had our ticket and we're ready to jump on the train and start planning. So the reflection step really kind of confused us. It slowed us down. We're like, why? We feel like we're delayed and waiting in this waiting room to get on the train. But once we read the very inviting material about how to go through the reflection process, we realized how important that step is and really how satisfying it was to take a step back and look at where we were before we started moving towards a plan of where we wanted to go. So our pastor also had a good piece of advice saying, let's start out by taking a look at the parish plan, the pastoral plan that the parish had already come up with as a starting place. And I imagine most parishes probably have something similar. So I recommend that. It's a great place to start. Our core group happened to be pretty analytical people, so we came up with this method of comparing our 5 pathways of our parish plan and the 7 Laudato Si goals. And we wanted to see where they overlapped and where there were any gaps. And that was really helpful to give us a little bit of focus and direction. And then another nice piece of advice came from one of our young adults who wanted to be part of the process. And she suggested that we write a story for each of the 5 pathways in our pastoral plan and show how it connects with the LSAP. So again, this isn't something we would normally have done, but it was a very rewarding task because it required us to meet up with staff, find out what the stories were, and then really bring it alive and make the connection to the LSAP goals. So a few things that surfaced during the development of the stories was how important relationships are and how we would want to draw on that for our action plan. And that, of course, comes through Laudato Si very clearly. And another thing that I wanted to take credit for the reflection process was our connection to the message of Laudato Si that we really need to recognize the root causes of why the earth and the poor are crying out and not just respond to the symptoms. And then in our final reflection note, we wanted to point out that we take into account those 3 relationships that keep showing up in Laudato Si, our relationship to God, to others, and to creation. So we highly recommend reading or rereading Laudato Si before developing your plan. Do this during your reflection time, and it really helped us. So we were humbled by waiting in the waiting room here, and we felt very strengthened during that time, and we felt much more grounded before moving on to our next step. So now we had our ticket. We'd spent our time in the waiting room, and now we were ready to pick up our bags and head up to the arrival track. So putting together the action plan was exciting because now, instead of just thinking about what we want to do at our ministry level, it had really broadened to seeing what we wanted to do at the parish level. And the 7 goals really helped us focus on specific tasks. And then the grounding of Laudato Si helped us to continually tap into that spirituality of the movement. So again, as analytical people, we tend to think well using spreadsheets. So we developed this table to help us keep track of our ideas and to make sure we had a way to complete them. So some of the headings here is, I just have an example of one action for each of the goals, but we wanted to decide now who's going to be involved just to keep us directed here. And we wanted to often include a staff member, really just to kind of bounce ideas off of and to keep them in the loop, but not to add to their duties. And then the status, because that would help us keep track of things like if it was a new action, if it was a new investigation, which is actually a lot of what our first year action plan was, a lot of investigations, or was it an ongoing action that we wanted to keep going from the previous year? And then we added the timing column there because we wanted to be able to spread out our tasks throughout the year and be able to plan it better. So some of our options might be a year long or quarterly or during the spring or during the season of creation, for example. And then finally, we wanted to know what our metric of success would be, to know if we had done it. So we wanted to know what will we produce or what will have happened. And then at the end of the year, we, as part of our reflection for the next year, we would highlight our actions in green or yellow and red, indicating if we'd completed it, if we'd started it but hadn't completed it, or if we hadn't actually gotten to it. And sometimes we'll take those and move them into our next year. So it's a really good accountability document for ourselves and for our parish. So finally, we got on the train and we're working through our 3rd year of an action plan, and we hope to make that bolder and bolder each year. But there's a real sense of pride in letting others know that our parish is part of this Vatican action plan and that we've we've actually submitted our action plan to the Vatican. That gets a lot of attention. So I'd just like to end by saying we're so thankful to Laudato Si movement and the Catholic Climate Covenant for the motivation and the structure, the webinars, and all the resources. You brought the train to us, you gave us the destination, and now the Holy Spirit is providing clean, renewable energy for our journey.
Thank you, Janet. That's amazing. And how I'm just impressed at how methodical this was at St. John Neumann. It's we've known each other for a while, and I'm just always amazed at all the work that happens at that parish, and such a supportive pastor too, which certainly helps a great deal. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go to the education sector, and we have with us Michael Downs from Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California. Michael.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's such an honor to be with you. Also want to congratulate Dan on the honorary degree he just received from his alma mater at Xavier University. My name is Michael Downs. Very proud to be here with Kennedy Baker, who's about to graduate. She's taking a final in about half an hour, so Kennedy will join us just for a few minutes. I serve as Director of Justice and Kinship and the Creation Care Team Manager at Bishop O'Dowd High School, which was the first Catholic high school in California to receive the Green Ribbon distinction, and very excited to be with you today. One thing that's really helped deepen and enhance our work is that we have a charism call to kinship with creation, and that gives us sort of leverage and traction to make decisions informed through the lens of kinship with creation, not to mention social justice and joy. It's a school that has really leaned into this notion of whole school sustainability and environmental justice, from individual students like Kennedy up through teachers, alumni, parents, our board, and administrators. So really, we're here on behalf of the Creation Care team there on your left, having our end of year celebratory lunch yesterday, and the Eco Leadership team on the right, an annual team of seniors who helps integrate our call to integral ecology. But we really try to ground our students in a sense of place. This is our particular place on a hill in East Oakland, overlooking all of the environmental, social, political, and economic realities of East Oakland across the bay to the city of San Francisco. Like many of you, we're a community that deals with climate vulnerability. You can see the little sort of highlighted blob in the middle is where our school is. And we do face various climate vulnerabilities, social economic vulnerabilities, and also environmental vulnerabilities. We're situated at a unique threshold between an urban center and a huge swath of preserved state parks. One really inspiring part of our story is the transformation of a 4-acre plot of weeds and trash into a 4-acre certified wildlife habitat and outdoor classroom, all at the hands of student, parent, and faculty volunteers, lovingly called the Living Lab. The Living Lab, which you can learn more about on our website, inspired the design of the Center for Environmental Studies, which is where every freshman, including my son right now, is grounding their high school experience in a sense of place through a foundational course in science and the environment. And this is the backdrop for informative and transformative experiences for all of our students, and is where we're sitting right now. And I want to invite Kennedy maybe just to offer a brief perspective on what it's been like to be a student and a student leader here.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Kennedy. I'm a current senior at O'Dowd, and I'm part of the Living Lab Eco Leaders, which is a leadership group at our school that specifically pertains to all things environmental, including the lab. I will be attending UC Santa Cruz in the fall, taking biotechnology as my major. And for some things that environmentally, our school really strives for kinship with creation. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, and that shows up in the form of specifically a lot of religion classes, taking us physically to the lab where we get to ground ourselves in nature. And the teachers really strive to make sure that when it comes to religion and basically everything at this school, we can have that extra environmental aspect brought into it. So not only do we have our learning with an environmental base, but also our religion and our beliefs can also be validated with the environment and with nature. And that, I think, is really what makes this school just such a great place to learn at, especially when it comes to the environment, where we can be educated not only with everything that a student should learn, but also with the nature. And we have just such, there's a new perspective given that I don't think a lot of other schools can have. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity that's been given.
Right. And we are so deeply grateful to Kennedy for leadership and for loving this place and just asking me if they can volunteer this summer. And so I'm going to wish Kennedy the best on your final and your graduation. I'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah. So the legacy of leadership here at O'Dowd has given us a sort of leverage to also be a source of inspiration for the Diocese of Oakland, where we've cultivated a Laudato Si leadership cohort. Right now, if you might be able to hear kindergartners who are roaming the living lab, being led by seniors, planting trees and getting environmental lessons to end their year. I was also invited to serve on the California Catholic Conference Environmental Stewardship Committee, hoping to live out not just Laudato Si, but also the beautiful California pastoral letter, the Canticle of California, and finally have been invited to be on the Laudato Si Action Platform Education Sectors Working Group to help spread the calling of Laudato Si globally to Catholic schools. These are just a few examples of our ongoing leadership this semester and collaboration. I mentioned the diocesan collaboration, which is ongoing. We partnered with the Ignatian Solidarity Network for a national eco summit in the Santa Cruz Mountains, bringing schools from around the country responding to Laudato Si. We partnered with Catholic schools around the state to lead hundreds of students on a Laudato Si advocacy pilgrimage to meet with religious and legislative leaders in Sacramento. And then most recently had a chance to represent O'Dowd and Oakland at the NCEA National Conference and presenting about Laudato Si. We feel an imperative to continue this leadership, not just because of Laudato Si, but because of the impact of climate change on student health and learning. We're also trying to keep pace with what's happening in California public school sector, which is really making climate and environmental literacy universal. And every teacher formation program in the state is now integrating climate and environmental literacy. And we hope that Catholic schools will keep pace. We know that the college and career landscape is going greener. And finally, we are facing the risks under current government administration, the risks to environmental education and green schools funding, which with the current House bill has the risk of losing millions of dollars in helping to green our school infrastructure in red and blue states alike. What I wanted to share briefly is two frameworks that have really informed and inspired our work. The 7 goals of the Laudato Si action platform and the 4 C's of whole school sustainability integration across your campus, curriculum, community, and culture. And just briefly, an example of each. We have had a thought partner group with our board and president towards a 2030 Laudato Si action plan. The 7-year journey, which has been referenced before, but really would encourage anyone in the schools sector to lean into. What we've done is sort of mapped the 4 C's of sustainability integration onto the 7 goals: environmental ed and ecological spirituality under curriculum, sustainable lifestyles and ecological economics under campus, and the remaining under community and culture. So just to share a few examples we've been able to manifest here at O'Dowd: solar panels, a drive-in waste system throughout our campus, and EV chargers for our faculty. In curriculum, we've been able to train all of our teachers to be grounded in Laudato Si, environmental education, and using outside as their classroom. We're expanding beyond just science and religion to other departments. For example, my son, who's a freshman, was able to encounter Laudato Si in his science, religion, math, English, and service learning programs. The curriculum, of course, extends beyond the classroom to our retreat themes, to our prayer services and liturgies. We just had a bishop join us for a confirmation service last week, referencing the importance of finding God in all things, including the natural world. And finally, Across community and culture, both internally and externally, we divert all of our cafeteria waste into our robust compost system. We produce food that's integrated back into our cafeteria and special events. And we have our student service projects not only serve the backyard of our living lab, but environmental orgs throughout the East Bay. This manifests in what's called the Common Home Project. So every freshman, including my son, has had a chance to learn about Laudato Si in responding to the cry of the earth and the cry of their poor. This extends beyond neighborhood and local engagement to state and national advocacy. We've had students speak at all of these different levels about how Laudato Si has touched their heart and mind. Finally, this is just a preview of our 2030 Laudato Si action plan, using the 4 C's as our lens, and you can see what our priorities are going forward with the president and board on board. We're deeply grateful to double down on these efforts. I'll close with one of our favorite quotes from Laudato Si. It says, environmental education should facilitate making the leap toward the transcendent, which gives ecological ethics its deepest meaning. It needs educators capable of developing an ethics of ecology and helping people through effective pedagogy to grow in solidarity, responsibility, and compassionate care. And Kennedy, who's there in the front right corner, just closed by saying, you know, her mindset has changed, and that's what Laudato Si calls from all of us. Thank you so much. I'd love to reach out to connect and collaborate. My email's here and in the follow-up email.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was amazing. These presentations are just stunning, and certainly give Kennedy our congratulations on becoming a Santa Cruz banana slug. She was fabulous. To really give her our sincerest thanks. Let's turn it over to Sister Bridget Beers with LCWR.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say as well as I begin these few moments that I am really delighted to be here across the sectors. I work in the religious order sector predominantly for Laudato Si, but this opportunity to come together to hear what other sectors are doing is really quite remarkable. And so I serve the Leadership Conference of Women Religious as the Associate Director for Transformative Justice. So just a little word about LCWR. We represent 294 congregations of women religious in the United States, and about 35,000 women religious. We work with about 1,200 of those leaders and about 200 of the justice promoters for those congregations. Over the course of these last years, we have had about 160 congregations or institutes engage in the Laudato Si action platform. About 130 of them have continued to be very active over time. We at LCWR see this work of Laudato Si as part of the integration of the way that we respond to the gospel message, finding that intersection between migration, climate, and racism, and looking at the root causes. I just want to pause for a moment and say that I have the opportunity to tell you a few stories about some of those 130 congregations of women religious. But in this working group for religious orders of the platform, I've had the great opportunity to work with an amazing team of the religious order working group that includes Marianne Comfort and Russ Testa and David Rohr-Budash. And we work with both the Leadership Conference of Women Religious and the Conference of Major Superiors of Men. And so, so I have this opportunity now to tell you a few stories, a few of the pieces that different congregations across the country are engaging in as part of their platform. One of the things we have come to believe in the religious order sector is that we want to change the narrative about what climate is and what climate isn't. We want to make Laudato Si become that transformative agent in the world that is expansive. And it took me a while to figure out which of the stories I would tell. And I see that there are a number of LCWR members here. Some of you will recognize that one or the others of these stories come from your own congregations. Many of our congregations over the course of the platform have engaged in community gardening. They have turned acreages that were once dormant into productive parts of the community, and particularly now as we find the intersection with migration, those community gardens are also becoming places where some of our most vulnerable find hope in food. And I want to highlight the congregations around the country who have made water one of the focal points of their Laudato Si action platform plan, whether it is cleaning out a local creek bed or a congregation in Pennsylvania that has worked specifically to remove toxic piping going through their own mother house, but also impacting the quality of water for communities around and within the perimeter of the mother house. We have a number of communities who are working directly on the issue of single-use plastics and the removal of plastics. One congregation in particular that over the course of the last 3 years, every single week, the leadership team and justice team have put out a call as part of their action plan to take a specific action about the reduction of plastics, and not just for a single week, but to make that a collective. So over the course of their 7-year plan, the reduction of plastics within their own communities, which span not just in the United States, but around the world, will be a significant gift to the implementation of Laudato Si. We have many communities that are working on fossil fuels in a variety of ways. In some places, it's about education, knowing what fossil fuels are and aren't. What is our responsibility for the way that we use them? What is our responsibility for the way of reduction? And how can we be agents of change in both legislature and in our own local communities? A number of our communities have done that intersection between climate and racism, looking at the quality of air in their urban communities and in some cases the rural communities, noticing and testing and working for change in areas where the quality of air and the quality of life intersects in such a way that their work on the action platform to alleviate the air pollution is also addressing systemic racism within their communities. We know that that piece of the fractured earth is also an invitation to the depth of real transformation that lasts a lifetime. We've been thinking in the religious order sector about how to make the single actions that we engage in through the course of this 7-year journey, not just a change of habits or a change of mind, but really a transformation of consciousness. And we have invitations that are emerging through the action platforms from one community to the next, as we find that changing the stories of how we are with one another is the best way to deep transformation. And so many of us, many of our congregations of the 130 who are currently engaged in the platform are, over the course of the next year, specifically the next 6 months, engaging in what you might have heard about as the Pilgrims of Hope for Creation, this eco-collaborative way of engaging in bringing together our desire for healing and reconciliation of the earth and of relationships. And finally, what is it that brings us hope? We hope, of course, for that new heaven and the new earth. We believe that by changing the narrative and engaging in conversation, something new can happen. And so just an image before we go. one of the things that we have done in the religious order sector is to gather together all those congregations who are working on the platform to share our experience, our strength, our hope, and our opportunities, as well as how we might encourage the future. And one of my favorite moments of the work that we have done as a working group is the time that we gathered together and we said, we all watched the movie The Letter, but let's imagine for a moment that we're writing our own. What would we say to Pope Francis about our own experience of the reality in our midst, the challenges we face, the gospel that we hear, and the choices that we make? Because we believe that we have a responsibility not only to watch the letter, but to write the letter. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sister Bridget. And the religious sector is so important, and men and women religious are doing amazing work on this. But I always try to remember and recall for all of us that women religious have been working in this field far longer than any of us have. So we're always grateful to hear all of the great things that you're doing. Let's turn to the healthcare sector, and Indu Spagnardi, our partner at Catholic Health Association, is teed up and ready to go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting the Catholic Health Association to share about the profound impact that Laudato Si has had on Catholic healthcare in the United States. My name is Indu Spagnardi. I'm Senior Director of Community Health and Elder Care here at CHA. We're the national leadership organization for the Catholic Health Ministry. We represent Catholic health systems, over 600 hospitals, and 1,200 continuing care organizations. First, I'd like to discuss how Laudato Si has rooted Catholic healthcare's environmental stewardship work in Catholic teaching. But before I do that, I want to set the context of healthcare's impact on the environment and the history of environmental sustainability in healthcare. Over 25 years ago, research was uncovering the devastating health impacts of environmental hazards, particularly on the most vulnerable among us: children, both before and after birth, on older persons, and on historically marginalized communities which were already suffering from poor health outcomes. And data was showing that hospitals were a significant source of pollution in communities in terms of waste, chemicals, including mercury, and dioxins, which were produced through the incineration of medical waste. Environmental advocacy groups and government agencies were calling on healthcare to live up to their motto of first to do no harm by addressing their environmental footprint. And cost pressures were also driving healthcare organizations to focus on energy efficiency. So healthcare environmental sustainability efforts really were born out of economic and political pressures. And while great strides have been made to remove mercury from healthcare and to find alternatives to incinerating waste, healthcare still has a huge impact on the environment. The provision of healthcare produces large amounts of emissions of greenhouse gases. The U.S. healthcare sector accounts for 8.5% of total greenhouse gas emissions. The provision of healthcare produces a lot of waste. 14,000 tons of waste daily, of which 20 to 25% is plastic. And it consumes large amounts of water. It's estimated that hospitals use approximately 7% of all water use in commercial and institutional facilities in the US. So when Laudato Si was released in 2015, Catholic healthcare embraced the teaching that creation is sacred. It's a sacred gift, and that care for the environment is a moral issue. So as a result, environmental stewardship in Catholic healthcare gained a broader and deeper focus and commitment. And it wasn't just about economic and political considerations, it was about ethical and moral considerations as well. And so what did that look like? So when Catholic healthcare looked at supply chains, they looked at both the environmental and social practices of their partners, including the use of forced labor and ethical purchasing. It looked at the communities it served and how the most vulnerable, and usually those marginalized or disenfranchised due to race or income, were being disproportionately impacted by climate change. And they're working to find ways to make those communities more resilient. And Catholic Healthcare is advocating with partners to ensure that environmental sustainability policies in healthcare reflect the values of Laudato Si, those values being human dignity, justice, and equity. And this is particularly urgent now as the impacts of climate change become more intense and begin to affect the greater population more directly. We need to ensure that those most impacted and with the least resources still continue to have support. Laudato Si also helped reinforce in Catholic healthcare the idea that everything is connected and that healthy communities are inseparably linked to healthy environments. This idea was not entirely new in healthcare. We've recognized that health is greatly influenced by social factors such as income, education, and where we live. But Laudato Si reinforced that people cannot thrive in a polluted environment or in economic and social systems that are built on exploitation in the pursuit of profit. So given the interrelatedness of the issues at the heart of the environmental crisis, nature, health, social, economic, spiritual, Catholic healthcare recognizes that we must partner with others to find integrated solutions. And sometimes those solutions may not be directly health related. So this includes not only changing the way we purchase and consume, but addressing the reasons why we have placed wealth and possessions over the preservation and protection of the natural world, which we need to exist and thrive. Finally, Laudato Si has prepared Catholic healthcare to face challenges in our efforts to care for creation, giving us the moral motivation to keep pressing forward despite challenging barriers, and the collaborative focus that reminds us that we cannot do this work alone and that we must partner with others. Catholic healthcare will continue to advocate for the most vulnerable who are being impacted by environmental degradation and climate change. We will work to preserve existing environmental protections, which are under threat right now. And we will advocate for clean energy, which faces significant setbacks under this new administration. And finally, we'll continue to find ways to be part of a united Catholic voice on the environment. And I think that's the most important thing we can do right now. We can't do the above if we aren't all working together. And the way that we've united our voice with all of you on this call is to join the Laudato Si Action Platform, sponsoring the Encounter campaign, which lobbied for the Inflation Reduction Act. And we're also a sponsor of the Pilgrims of Hope for Creation to activate the Catholic community to take action on climate change. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much, Indu. We are running a little long, but that's really important information. I'm particularly stunned by the plastics statistic that you quoted. It's we know this, but when you hear a number like that, it becomes real. Our final panelist is Victor Jaimes from the Franciscan Renewal Center in Arizona. So, Jaimes, go ahead. Victor, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you, Paz, for having me be here today. I'd like to thank the Catholic Climate Covenant taking the time to do this. It's a lot of work, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now and hit presentation. So I'd like to welcome everyone on this call. Thank you for taking the time, especially for you to be a part of this. So I'm just going to go over a couple of community projects that we're doing here at the Franciscan Renewal Center, or as we, the shorthand version of the name is the CASA. So the title of the presentation is a celebration of the CASA's care for our common home. And this presentation was a similar presentation was given last Thursday at our 10th anniversary celebration of Laudato Si. Before we begin, I'd like to give a very quick land acknowledgement for the native indigenous people that inhabited this land. We are on or near traditional lands of the Akima Autumn, Pipash, and Yavapai people. We gather here today to honor and respect this sacred ground we find ourselves on as we contemplate creation, experience this place, and express the stirrings our coming together may generate. May the consecration of this land be deepened through the thoughts and actions of all those who come to the Franciscan Renewal Center, virtually or in person, each day. So just to give a quick outline on what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give a quick lead status update and, as I mentioned, FRC community projects and just general thank you. So for the past 2 years now, the Franciscan Renewal Center has worked with U.S. Green Building Council to get our church LEED certified. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and it's basically a certification by the U.S. Green Building Council for buildings that meet environmental practices and sustainable design. And I'm proud to announce that we have been certified LEED Gold by the U.S. Green Building Council. And the name of our church is the Conventual Church of Our Lady of the Angels at the Franciscan Renewal Center. We are only 2 churches in the entire nation to have received a LEED Gold certification. Typically, LEED Gold is reserved for commercial, industrial type buildings. And I think in the next couple of years, our goal is to try and get LEED Platinum. Only a few buildings in the entire US have gotten LEED Platinum, but we're really proud to be distinguished by the Green Building Council. So I'm happy to share that with you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some community projects that the Renewal Center is doing. I'd like to invite you to consider in your respective parish communities, but also Catholic organization communities to take on these projects for consideration. So the first project I'm going to go over is our Casa Healing Garden Milkweed Revitalization Project. So in the northwest corner, about the northwest corner of our property, we have a healing garden that consists of native milkweed. And these milkweed were planted within the last 10 years. We had a Cub Scout group come in 2017, 2018 to plant some of the first milkweed on our property. And our milkweed flourished so much that in April 2019, a local botanical garden called Desert Botanical Garden came by and certified us as a monarch way station, which basically is a recognition that we're a place of rest and respite for migrant monarch butterflies. We get a lot of butterflies that come up from Mexico and down from Mexico to Mexico, winter and summer respectively, to rest, but also to pollinate. And it's not just butterflies we get many other pollinators, bats, so on and so forth. But over the last 3 or 4 years, our milkweeds have suffered greatly because of climate change and the intense droughts that we faced, the lack of rainfall. So one of our big projects that we're doing this winter, so winter 2025-26, is revitalizing our milkweeds so that our monarchs can still come to our place as a place of rest and respite. And as a big undertaking that we plan to do here, and I'd like to invite you to consider ways that maybe your parish or Catholic church community can consider planting milkweed in your garden so that your place can be a place of rest and respite for your native pollinators. Next up is the Casa E-Waste Drive. So the Casa E-Waste Drive essentially exists because of sort of a practice within consumer tech industry. So over the past few decades, technological advancements have forced us to upgrade, replace, fix, etc. Apple always promotes us to upgrade to the next iPhone or other Apple device. Other tech companies like Microsoft forcibly make some of their products obsolete, like Microsoft 7 in 2020, and soon Windows 10 this coming October, forcing us then to get new computers to keep up with these new software operating systems. This results in things like old DVD players, rusting power tools, etc., to collect dust or get tossed in the landfill. And through the general landfill process, unfortunately, studies have shown that the toxic metals in these products, such as mercury, zinc, copper, even precious metals too, gold, copper, are either left to rot or rust, a more appropriate word, or contaminate our soils and also pollute our waterways. But fortunately, within the last couple of years, a lot of recycling companies like West Tech Recyclers, a local company, have sprung forth to take our products and repurpose the items. If there's any components in there like motherboards, cables, etc., to repurpose these items for general reuse, or if it's no longer functional, to recycle the precious metals, but also toxic metals in there, and to be used for other products, recycled products. So we invite you to consider how your parish or organization could organize an e-waste drive. To look into local recycling businesses in your area, ask around your community, like, hey, what are some kind of products you have lying around your home? Old computers, TVs, and the like. Because it's a good way for folks to clean out their homes of old tech items and create a more active recycling tech stream. And another thing too is we're very strategic about kind of planting the seed in the summer, is that in the fall, a lot of tech products are coming out in preparation for the holiday season. So that's something to consider as well, and we're happy to organize starting this summer. Lastly, and Sister Bridget mentioned this in her presentation, we're organizing a pilgrimage of hope with the Diocese of Phoenix in November 15th. And it's, as Sister Bridget mentioned, it's focusing on the sacred relationship between humanity and creation. So November 15th, we're going to do our pilgrimage of hope for creation in Sedona, Arizona. So I invite anyone in this call who's in the west southwest region to consider registering or getting more information about this pilgrimage. We hope to have more information later this summer as to registration and more the time of this pilgrimage and more details. So I'd like to thank you all so much for taking the time to hear me speak. And I'll just close with a quote by Pope Francis. Hope is not an evasion, but a challenge. It does not delude, but empowers us. Thank you.
Beautiful closing. Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for running long. I'm going to turn this over quickly to Christina Liano, who's going to introduce our next guest.
Great. Thanks so much, Dan. So I'm delighted now to shift the program to talk about the Laudato Si Action Platform and to introduce a friend and colleague, Alonso de Llanes, who is the program manager of the Laudato Si Action Platform. And he's joining us from Strasbourg, France, and he'll be sharing an exciting update regarding LSAP. Thank you so much, Alonso.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christina, and wonderful work, everything that was presented today. I'm always amazed about how you guys are doing. My screen is shared, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thank you. So today I just want to talk about very, very quickly about the amount of engagement in the United States. And first of all, this is a webinar to celebrate the anniversary of Laudato Si, and I want to celebrate all of you because in the Laudato Si Action Platform, we have 10,400 total registrations, but out of those 10,400, 2,298 are from the United States. So that makes the United States one of the biggest participants of the platform. So as you can see here, we have a tremendous amount of families and individuals participating with 1,324. We have 190 schools, 251 parishes, 32 dioceses, 153 congregations. So it's really beautiful to see all of these institutions and families and individuals working from the United States. So according to the survey that we launched last year, to know the impact of the platform, the direct impact was of 20 million people. And just to make a precision here, only 30% of the 10,000 participants answered this survey, meaning that probably we have so much more than these 20 million. And there are 150 countries engaged in the platform. This is tremendous. We have 5 different languages: English, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese. And it's extraordinary to see this global community, and you're part of this global community in the platform. You are empowering individuals, you are making and driving change in your community, in your parish, in your diocese, and this is just a lot of meaningful actions going on. And what makes our community unique? Well, first of all, this is an official Vatican program, so it's a program of the Dicastery for promoting internal human development, with global partners like the Laudato Si movement, who contributes to the operation, and Catholic Climate Covenant in the United States, with bi-monthly webinars, engaging sessions with experts and peers worldwide. After every webinar, we have a community discussion where participants are invited to stay for additional 30 minutes and engage with each other, talk about their experiences and learnings. We have a resource library of over 850 tools and materials available in multiple languages that you can filter for each of the sectors and in different languages. So if you are a parish and you're looking for a resource in ecological economics, which is one of the goals, you can filter, and then you can filter also the sector, and you can also filter by keyword. This is one of the new features of the platform. So those filters, because that was a direct response to your questions. So we are able to make global connections with this community engagement sessions that we have after each webinar. Also, if you go to our impact page from the platform, you can see a map. That map has all the participants that agree to share their information with others, so you can see how many schools, how many universities are participating around the world. But those are, and I remind you, only the ones that accepted to be public when they subscribe to the platform. And then there are a lot of transformative opportunities, because what we have seen today is that examples like Lexington will inspire our other dioceses, and our already diocese institutions, schools, sending us emails, talking to the Covenant or talking to LSM and saying, hey, how can we actually be in contact with this person because he inspired us a lot, or how can I see the plan or the reflection or what they're doing? So just bear in mind that the platform has a library of plans and reflections. So if you're looking for the Lexington plan, for example, you will go to the library of plans, and normally it will be there. Also to notice that only the plans and the reflections that the participant agreed to be public, they will be shared there. If they say no, then the plan is not likely to be there. As I was telling you, so we have these plans and we have reflections. I invite you to, if you're already enrolled, to send your reflection, to send your plan, to show and share what you're doing already in your community. So far, from the 2,000 participants that the United States has, we have 195 reflections from participants from the US and 135 plans. So we have a long way still to go. And what is interesting about these plans and reflections is that we saw there that there are deep spiritual insights. So people are actually talking about the ecological scene. They're actually talking about their ecological conversion. So it's amazing to see how ecological conversion can be grabbed and used to transform an entire organization. So we see universities changing their whole curricula, changing the way in which they interact with providers of services. So it's amazing to see that, and that we can only know if you make a plan and a reflection. We can also see there the strategic planning. So there are institutions, even like families and individuals that are saying, okay, this is gonna be my plan for the next 3 years, and I'm gonna start recycling, and I'm gonna start putting my money in sustainable banking. And so it's amazing how the spirit of internal ecology is actually making you make these steps towards strategic planning, and in your journey of ecological conversion, we can see that we are not alone, that there's a shared vision, that there are unifying goals shared by many participants globally. And that's very beautiful because it serves as a empowerment tool. So now we can see communities that are really empowered, making change, sisters in the United States divesting millions of dollars, sisters in Africa having impactful water and sanitation projects. So it's beautiful. And this reminds us, of course, of our collective responsibility. So working together to safeguard creation for the future generations. And what is new in the platform? So we have a new improved navigation. So the journey is now easier. You can go to the platform and you will see in the main page which are the steps to follow once you enroll, and how to engage with the platform. This is a direct response to many of the feedback that participants and partners from the platform gave us. We have a new certificate program. So this certificate program is only for institutions. So if you're a family or an individual, you cannot be certified. But if you are a school, a parish, a university, any other institution, health center, hospital, congregation, religious communities, you can ask for the certificate once you complete the steps. Those steps includes make the reflection, make a plan, upload it. So the certificate will be granted yearly if you complete these steps. Now we have an easier access to the action. So if you're already a participant of the platform, you are familiar with the suggested actions. If not, once you arrive to your dashboard, you will see small survey. That small survey will grant you access to the actions. So the actions are tailored to your specific context and to your specific sector. So diocese in the United States probably will not see the same actions for ecological economics or for response to the cry of the earth than a diocese from here, from France, or from Colombia. So this is very important to bear in mind. The actions are different. And then now you can actually, many of you were telling us, how can we share with you what we already did during the year? Now the suggested actions can be clickable. So you're going to be able to report what you do without doing a full document every year to report what you did. And this is optional. Reporting is optional, but we encourage you to click on those actions that you already did, because it's part also of the steps needed for the certificate. And then we have, of course, a new redefined tracking tools that will allow you to see where you are during the year to complete the steps. So all of this is new. And of course, if you have any doubt, questions, I forgot to say, if you do not know how to make a plan or how to make a reflection, there are new templates that you can download in the 5 different languages available in your dashboard. And so if you have any questions, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be putting my email in the chat box. But in any case, you have the Catholic Climate Covenant that is making tremendous work in the United States with all of you, and also Laudato Si movement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alonso. I know we're very short on time. We'll just keep you another couple of minutes. I want to remind people that in the United States there is another website that is not labeled Laudato Si Action Platform. It's actually labeled godsplanet.us, and Paz has put that up on the screen for us for now. The beauty of this is that it really collects what's happening in just in the US and all the 7 sectors and the 7 goals and so forth. So we strongly encourage you to not only go and look at that, but as you sign up for the Laudato Si Action Platform and complete your goals, we ask you to put those in that website as well. You can enter those right in there. This is likely my last webinar to host because I did such a poor job at keeping time. I'm sure my colleagues are going to say, Dan, you're done. But if I come back, I'll be happy to host another one. But I am so grateful for all the panelists, for the amazing amount of work that people are doing, for the inspiration. We sit here in Washington and hope that things are happening, and then when we actually see and hear them, it gives us great joy and great hope for this work. So thank you all. This webinar is being recorded. It'll be available in the next 24 to 48 hours. And as we depart, let's be sure to thank all of the panelists who did such a great job. And thank you for your attention and your time and your forgiveness for me having run over. If you do have questions, please either write info@catholicclimatecovenant.org or hello Laudato Si movement at laudatosimovement.org, and we'll try to answer those. I apologize for not getting to those. So have a blessed day. Thank you very much, and God help our planet and inspire us.